All right, everybody, welcome to the Leadership Mastermind Podcast. I am your host, Mitch Peak, and this is my co-host, Laura Brandeo. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Mitch. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome.
Wonderful. Well, very excited about our guest today. And I want to dive right into introduce Nate Bailey. He is the best-selling author of 3 books as well as an entrepreneur. He has built multiple successful businesses in the insurance and real estate industry. He recently fulfilled his lifelong dream of selling his insurance agency to follow his dream of becoming a full-time coach. Coach Nate is also known as Lieutenant Bailey due to his commitment to serving his country in the U.S. Army. Nate has a simple philosophy of life. Live what you teach. This motto truly makes Nate one in a million coach and an implementer. Nate sees what needs to be done and he does it. He pushes his teams to the max and he makes sure he's always leading from the front by pushing himself one step beyond. Thank you so much for joining us, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, Nate, I'll tell you what, man, we'll jump right in. The big question is, what are your 3 key pillars to leadership?
Yeah, it's the top 3. There's many, right? But the top 3 that really stand out to me. Number 1 is lead yourself first. So it's a lot of people want to go out and lead others and think it's kind of I don't know, in a way sexy, right, to be in a leadership position and to have that responsibility. But many have forgotten to take the time to really step up and lead themselves first so that they can go out and lead others. The second one really is it ties in a bit to the first, but really to be the example. And so kind of what I mean by that, typically there's a minimum standard, right, for most things in most areas of life. And as a championship leader, to be the example would really to be the standard yourself, to not exceed the minimum requirements and to really set the standard, set the bar high for, the vision of where you want your team and your organization to go. And lastly, really is having a clear vision with a focus on today. So, great championship leaders have incredible vision, oftentimes a vision that others have difficulty seeing themselves or might think that because it is different than what everybody else is doing. It's a different path than what most are on. They kind of think you're crazy, right, for having this vision. And then with the clear focus on today is really just to be focused on what needs to be done, to be present, so that you can go ahead and accomplish that vision down the road.
I love that. Okay, so let's start with the first one. It's a big one. Lead yourself first. Let's dive into that to understand, where does that start? Where do you begin with that thought process? And is it setting up your schedule? Is it holding yourself accountable? Like, where do you begin with leading yourself?
Yeah, I would say it's all of the above. It's, in all areas, right? Taking care of your fitness and your nutrition and your body, which drives really everything, right? If you are in shape and you're taking care of yourself, you exercise daily, you're feeding yourself properly, and you have the energy, you have the drive, you have the focus to exceed in your business. You have the focus to really be present and engaged with your kids and your family. Taking care of your day, yeah, absolutely. It's planning your day out. It's being intentional. Really, is what it is being super intentional, not casual with your life. Many of us and me, I've been in this boat before. Is really kind of winging it and just being casual, waking up, no super direction in the morning, just kind of reactive versus being proactive, I guess, is the biggest things that I think of when I talk about leading yourself.
Absolutely. Let's go to number 3, where you said a clear vision, and sometimes people thinking you're crazy for the vision you hold. Let's start with that, because I know your 100-mile runs. I'm sure a lot of people thought that was crazy and undoable, and you've obviously proven that not to be true. But where did you come across that idea, and how long did it take you to prepare for that?
Yeah, sometimes I think I'm crazy for doing some of those things, but I first, I guess, to the 100-mile thing, I first had heard about it a long time ago, probably like 2004 or 5. And I remember reading an article about a guy in Sports Illustrated running 100 miles, and at that moment, it seems to be a little bit more common nowadays. More and more people are taking that challenge on. But especially back then, I hadn't really heard of it. And the idea was just crazy to me. Like, just running the marathon was crazy to me. And then to do 100 miles was even more nuts than that. So I remember, but it also kind of stuck with me, because I'm the kind of guy that I know I'm driven by having goals and outcomes in front of me that are going to drive me to lead the life that I want to lead, and that I want to be that example for others. And so in 2018, kind of had the idea to see if, I had what it would take to run 100 miles, and what would be required. Who would I have to become? Like, these are all questions that I ask myself in all different areas when I'm going after something that's kind of big. And I think it's important to have these types of goals and outcomes, because you can't be casual, like we were just talking about, and go run 100 miles, right? There's just work that's required.
And like you said, you can't be the same person you were the day you thought about it as the day you do it. You're changing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to transform
who you are to be able to do that.
Yeah. You got to transform into someone different, which is great, because we're always growing and evolving. And at least I think it's important to continue to grow and evolve. Otherwise, we don't stay stagnant. We'll slip back and slide back into old patterns and habits that we might not be super happy about. So yeah, having that vision of becoming someone bigger and better than yourself today is something that's definitely important to me. You hear a lot of people talking about, like, get 1% better every day, right? So similar thought process there. And it wasn't easy, right? As you can imagine, running 100 miles, it took me 29 hours. That's a long time, and a lot of things hurt: your feet, your knees, you're tired. But we can do just about anything if we really want to. And I failed a few times along the way, and so some perseverance comes into play. And all of those things, all those lessons that I learned through that process, absolutely make me a better father and husband, make me a better coach and leader in what I do inside of my business, and the people that I come into contact with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of that starts here, right? So before you can even start to look at those goals or that vision or the marathon or whatever it is you're working towards, you have to have that mindset in the right place, because if you're not, I would anticipate it would be very difficult to actually achieve that. So how important is it to have your mindset in the right place as you're working towards that vision?
Yeah, I think it's definitely critical to have that mindset. But at the same time, after running the 100 miles, I wrote a book called The 100-Mile Mindset. So
there you go.
Which is just something that I developed through that process. It's not necessarily, I didn't necessarily have the 100-mile mindset in the beginning, but it's something that you continue to develop. But the mindset, as far as definitely, committing to that, is this something that you really want to do? Is this something that you're really willing to take on? Because again, it's not easy. There's a lot of preparation that has to go in. There's a lot of miles that you must run beforehand to make sure that you'll have the capacity to finish 100 miles. And so, yeah, there's a definite mindset that has to be there. And I think the most important part of that in anything that you take on, whether it's 100 miles or whether it's, something else, something in business, something inside of your family, whatever area it is, if it's something big and important to you, is to just be committed to that, to become a person of your word that says, hey, I'm committing to this. I'm going to do it no matter how many times it takes me, no matter how long it takes me. I'm going to follow through, and I'm going to be the person that does what they say they're going to do, because I think that's important. It's not very common nowadays. It's something easy.
I think that to me, the mindset is probably a bigger challenge for people than the physical part. I just saw a study the other day I think it was yesterday on Facebook, about the mouse, and there was a study where they threw a mouse in a water and see how long it would tread water to see how long it would stay alive. And as soon as it stopped, they would pull it out and put it to the side, let it dry off. And I think it lasted like 16 hours.
Wow.
But then they put the mouse back in the water and they did it again, and it lasted for like 60 days because, because the mouse realized that there was hope. Someone was coming to rescue him. And so he kept going. So it was a mental thing at that point. I don't know exactly if I have the hours and days correct on that, but the study was, basically, hey, here's hope. And if you put hope in there,
not to give up, right? As long as there's a chance. Yeah.
Right. And I think, Nate, you've always taught in what you're teaching as a coach, as people have a roadblock where they think this is where their body can go, but it's actually their mind, right? I mean, that's where their mind tells them their body can do, but you push them beyond that.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. That's because we all do that, right? So I do a lot of different experiential type events where and there's usually some form of a physical piece to it. So if you put a cap on something, right? Like all right, we're going to do a 10-minute plank, or we're going to see how. Well, here's a better example. We would do this thing where it was called last man standing. So they have like a 40-pound sandbag, and you'd hold it over your head and you'd lock it out. And as soon as the sandbag would touch your head, then you're done, right? And so you would just keep going until one person was left holding the bag. And so what oftentimes happens is, number one, the first person, once one person gives in and lets the bag down, 100% of the time you'll see 2 to 3 other guys basically put the bag down pretty much right after that. They're like, all right, I wasn't the first one out, so then they put it down. It's not that they couldn't go longer. Their mindset wasn't strong enough, or they weren't committed enough to really see how much they had. So that's the first thing that you'll notice in something like that. And then typically you'll get down to 2 or 3 people, and ultimately there will be one person left, right? The last man standing. And usually what happens there is, as soon as the last man is left standing with the bag over their head and everybody else has finally dropped out, then he quits like immediately, instead of continuing to go to really see how far he could actually go with the bag over his head. And so a lot of times we give up, or we put these time limits in our head. There's a challenge. We're doing a 21-day challenge with some people, and it was a max plank was a challenge. And a friend of mine that was doing it, he was like, I made it to like 3.5 minutes. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. I was like, but I guarantee you could have went longer. And he's like, I don't know. I kind of waited until my body was shaking. I was like, well, if you had held a gun to your child's head and said, hey, you need to make it 10 minutes. Otherwise, your child is going to die. Guarantee you he would have found it within him to make it 10 minutes. And so, we can do so much more than we give ourselves credit for.
Wow, that's intense, Nate. It absolutely is. But it even takes me back to when we're children, right? So here we are, we have a small child, and they know they're going to walk, right? At some point, they're going to get up and they're going to walk. There isn't an option. There is no option, right? At some point, they're going to do it. So as we get older, kids can they'll do anything, right? They're fearless, they're limitless. Everything is achievable to a child. So what happens over time as you're a teenager, as you're coming out of college, as you're entering the workforce or the military? What happens to us that all of a sudden we have these limits, or we have that, well, I tried, because when you're a child, there is no I'll try. It's happening.
Yeah.
So what is it that changes in us? And how do you coach people to kind of not have those limits?
Yeah, well, a lot of things happens, right? I mean, man, we could go on for days on that one. As far as, I mean, the people that surround you, you hear some parents that tell their kids they can't do anything, and then other parents that tell their kids
you can do everything.
Literally is the limit, and you can do whatever you want. And there's this distinct difference in the results of those two kids, depending on the environment that they are in. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way for them. Maybe those kids that were always told they couldn't use that to drive them, but a lot of times, yeah, it's what are people around them telling them? I believe in my most recent book, I talk about this too. I always wanted to be a professional athlete, and I had it in my head that I was going to be, and I even started to share it with friends in school, and that's where it started for me. My friends were telling me that was never going to happen, and my stepdad told me that he wasn't telling me I couldn't do it, but he was basically trying to
soften the.
He was trying
steer you another way.
He was trying to protect me in the case that it didn't. Instead of saying like, man, if that's what you really want, then here's what you got to do. It was more like, that actually he gave me like the percentages of people that actually make it. Like less than 0.5% or 1% of people make it to the major leagues. And I was like, dude, come on. And again, he wasn't trying to kill my dreams, I guess.
He was trying to protect you. Probably.
He was trying to protect me. But it,
he was giving your mind a bubble wrap.
Yeah. Had I had somebody that would have stepped into my life and said, all right, that's awesome. Are you willing to do what's required? Like, here's the plan. What's the plan? Let's create a plan and let's go after it and get it. And so that's what happens to us as kids, I think. Or you get it, my daughter, she's playing softball. First game, she crushed the ball. She hit it to the fence, almost hit a home run. 7th grade, and then last night I picked her up from practice, and she's already talking to herself about like, well, what if I'm just a really average softball player, and that was just luck, and what if I never hit the ball like that again, and just like thinking of all these scenarios, and I'm like, well, what if you're the best player? What if like just a taste of what's to come? What if and then I'm like, well, what if the sky were to fall? Like, I mean, I don't know. What if we could? What if ourselves all day? Like, how about you just take that and continue to build on it and not worry about just step up and do your best every single time you go up.
What's that? Chicken Little, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
the sky is falling.
Yep, and then you have people that will tell you that it's okay, right? Like, maybe you're just not meant to be as good as the other person or whatever. So there's just, we're just get attacked by so many people. So mindset, it can be influenced so easily. And
if you're talking to parents with young children, what are your suggestions with, I see parenting where they say, don't do that, you're going to get hurt. Don't jump on that, you're going to get hurt. Stay out of the mud, you're going to get muddy. Or do you give them the, hey, if you do this, that could result in you getting injured? Or, how do you suggest parents go about trying not to do that to their children, not protect them too much, but give them the ability to learn from, what they're doing?
Yeah, I definitely get it. My wife is a little bit more protective when it comes to those things than I am. And sometimes she thinks I'm a bad parent for it. But it's like,
you should go on a hike with my wife and my kids around, steep cliffs or.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm watching, but I think it's important that they learn on their own. And also, you got to be smart and calculated risks, right? Like, what's the worst that could really happen here? And you got to kind of evaluate that. Is it worth them learning, or is it like really something that if they fall, it could be, something really serious or significant. So I think it's important for all of us to learn from our experiences and not from others, right? Like, because someone might have tried that in the past and it didn't work out well for them. So now they're telling everybody like, don't do it. Right. Well, I think it's really important for us, not just as kids, but, as adults, to continue to learn from experience and take lessons from each one of those to carry forward into the future, the next time something like that pops up. So now you have something that you can pull back on use as a tool and a guide going into the future. So, that's the biggest thing I guess I would say is as much as you can, let your kids learn, let them fall, let them have some difficult conversations, talk to them, be supportive, be there when they need you. But I want to protect. Sometimes I want to put a bubble around my kids, but I realize that that's not the way to do it, and that's going to hurt them more than it's going to help them in the long run.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Nate, tell us where that moment in time kind of clicked, where you decided you wanted to be a coach. Where did that happen, and when did it become your, where you were like, I think this is something I was meant to do in my life?
Yeah, well, I always go back to, I don't know if you guys remember as kids, but our school, we used to have these speakers that would come in all the time. Well, no, I shouldn't say all the time, but it was a special day when and you get the announcement on the speaker like, hey, please report to the auditorium. We'll be like, oh, what's going on? We get out of class, right? So you get out of class and there would be this speaker here. And I remember very clearly many of them that came through my school. And I remember just thinking that, man, that's so cool. That's so awesome that's what these people do. They go around the country and they just speak and motivate and inspire these kids all over the place. And so really a seed was planted for me then about how I would really like to do that. Of course, how do you do that, right? What's the
path, right? Where's the path for that?
It's really different for everybody, but I kind of stuck that away as, man, that would be awesome. And so that planted a seed for me to kind of want to be that person that coaches and inspires and impacts people. And then really, life takes over, was in the Army, business, insurance, not super happy. And that led me to the coaching world that I didn't even know existed. Ended up in myself and trying to get a few things figured out for myself and what I was doing in life and in different areas. And then eyes were open to like, man, this is something that I could do. This is something that I want to do. And so from there, and that was probably about 5 years ago where that happened. And so I really just kind of, again, led myself first. I can't go out and lead and coach someone else if I haven't done the work on myself and gotten myself to a point where I can feel happy about it and then go and help other people that might be in a similar place in their life. So it really started from investing in myself, being open to this is an actual world and a thing that you could do and you could go provide and make a living and impact a lot of people. So yeah, a little two-part answer. One, I think the seed was planted a long time ago when I was young in school, and then to 5 years ago when I was in a place that I didn't like for myself, so that I wanted to get out of, and hired some mentors and coaches of my own. And then from there, kind of, figured out how to do this myself.
That's awesome. Well, tell us this. What is your biggest secret to helping people overcome, fear and doubt? Because obviously, as a coach and someone who's done a 100-mile run, someone that's put in the work, when you're a coach to somebody, they can't say, well, that's too hard or that's too much. When you can say, well, I did 100 miles. If I can do that, you can do what I'm asking you to do. So, yeah. What are you telling people to do to overcome the fear and doubt in their life?
Well, I think, number one is being that example, right? Living life at a high level, not perfect, right? No one's perfect. I don't always do things, make mistakes. I fall, I fail. But it's owning that. It's probably standing in those moments and owning those. People appreciate and respect that. But yeah, just setting big goals and outcomes in front of myself and going out and doing those things. And of course, a lot of it is through the different events that I'll run. We do a 24-hour leadership, military style physical event. And we also do a 3-day, it's called Unleash the Leader Within experience. And there's a lot of the physical aspects of working out, teamwork, communication, perseverance, attention to detail, things like that we do through the physical exercises and experiences that help them to put them in situations that they wouldn't put themselves in themselves, right? If they weren't in this experience in front of me, they would never attempt to do some of the things that we asked them to do inside of these experiences. So we put them in a place that they wouldn't put themselves in. We know what's going to happen. We know the drill. We know how they're most likely going to respond. We know that they can do way more than they think they can, but they just haven't for some reason, because of maybe something that happened when they were young, or some traumatic experience, or just they got stuck in the rut of just kind of settling in life. And we show them, like, we literally, through these experiences, show them that where they thought they were, or where they thought that their perceived capacity or limits were, is actually way, way, way higher, right? And so we show them through physically experiencing it and breaking through some of those. And a lot of times, you need somebody else to turn the light on for you. And then when they see it, then they're like, oh man, I've been playing small for a long time, or I've been letting this thing hold me back for a long time. And it's fun to see as they move forward, how that's not an issue for them. So I think that's the best way to be able to help somebody through that, is to put them, to have them physically experience it themselves.
So how does the physical breakthrough lead to the mental breakthrough after? Because I see that it seems to be, from a lot of the stuff you guys do that I've seen, people are like pushed to their max, physically. And then afterwards they're like, if I can do that with Coach Nate, then, this business decision is nothing, or leveling up my business is nothing. How does that correlate?
Yeah, again, we take them to the brink of where they think they can go, and then we keep pushing them, and then they're like, holy cow, it's like, I can do this. A lot of them just, we all say at some point in life, man, I could never do that, or I couldn't do this, or I couldn't do that. And, it's just not true. It's just that they have never tried, or it's also surrounding them with others as well, right? So going through life on your own is way more difficult than going through life with somebody else that's got a similar path as you. You can go way further together than you can on your own. So those are the big things right there, is just continuing to push them. Really, it's challenging those thought processes that they have. And then when they see that they can actually do way more than they ever thought that they could, I mean, it's an easy transition mentally to, holy cows. They just realize that, man, I've been playing way too small for way too long. And once you've done it, then you just know you can do it. And you also automatically know, well, if I could do that, I actually could probably do way more than that. And so it's just a huge shift, where I think it's an automatic shift once they've experienced it physically, to the mental piece, is because it's not just the physical, it's the mental and the physical combined together at the same time.
That's kind of the breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
That's the breakthrough moment. So you mentioned a couple times actually about who you surround yourself with. And also you kind of were alluding to this tribe, right? And I 100% agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
From speaking of being a woman in the mortgage industry years ago, you were kind of like this unicorn if you were an executive woman. It's like, oh my God, is there any other ones out there?
Yeah.
Now that has changed, right? We've come a long way. But I've noticed that just what you just said, when you have this tribe around you, you almost want to keep pushing forward, and you kind of want to you use that word example. You want to be that example, right? To show other people you can do it too. Come with me. So let me ask you, with that tribe, or who you surround yourself with, how important is it? And how often should you almost take note of who you're surrounding yourself with, to almost take an inventory of, is this person someone that is helping and lifting me up? Or is this someone that maybe I've outgrown?
Yeah, it's critical to find that group, right? That's why it's so important. The clients that I have, it's that group, it's that community. Because let's say you have an incredible experience, and then you go back to wherever it is you're from. No one else that that was back home while you were having this incredible experience was there. They have no clue what you just went through. And so they're going to continue to, it's not good or bad. It's just that they're going to continue down the path, and then they're going to see you fired up, but they can very quickly bring you back down to where they are at because of that lack of experience. But if you can stay tied into that group that you were just with, that you had an incredible experience with, that knows what you know, that has probably even a particular set of language and lingo that you use, right? Inside of your group, we all have that in our tribes or whatever you want to call it, our team. You have a vocabulary that you use that's a little bit specific to you, and you're on the same path. You also have the same struggles, but you're able to help each other through those and support each other, celebrate together. So it's crucial. It's critical. I often, especially when I'm training, I do tend to like to train alone. But it's way more powerful when you're actually with somebody else and you're doing some training, and now they're pushing you harder than I would push myself. I'm going to take it easier on myself. Yeah. I'm going to say, slow it down a little bit when I really could keep going. And so there's so many benefits to the power of others.
They can push you for that 2 more reps on the bench.
Yeah, whatever it is, if it's in business, it's, pushing you to grow or to make a bigger impact in whatever it is that you do. Or you might see them starting to get ahead of you a little bit, and the competitive piece of me lights up, and then I'm going to kick it into a little bit of an extra gear too. So yeah, crucial.
All right. Tell me this. What is the biggest thing you see as a coach that prevents people from living the life that they want to live? What's holding people back?
Lack of clarity is a big one. Like to really get some clarity on what it is that you want inside of your life takes time. It takes sitting down and actually distraction free, right? And without a million other things pulling you in a million different directions. We're so busy, and our attention is being grabbed in so many different directions that I understand why people don't always have a lot of clarity on what it is that they truly want, because they're in that reactive mode. They've settled, and so a lot of people just don't take the time that's required to really find what's important to them, but really find what would excite them and drive them. And then not just that, but then, to get the clarity on, all right, let's put a plan in place. Let's be really intentional. So that's the other piece to it as well, is just being intentional on your life. I mean, we only get one of these. There's no guarantees on when our time is up, and witnessed that firsthand, and lives being cut way too short when no one would have ever expected it. As a great reminder to just, be present today, be super intentional, get clear on what it is that I want, and surround myself with people that I want to be surrounded with, again, because life is so short. Like, why would you not spend time with people that you're excited about being around, that you want to do life with? I think that's one of the biggest purposes of our life, is to have incredible experiences while we're here and help and impact and lift other people up at the same time. So if I had to say just one thing, it would be, just clarity on what you want, and creating that plan to make it happen.
And that kind of ties into living legacy. So what does living a legacy mean to you? That kind of just keep going in that path you were about to speak of.
Yeah, living a legacy to me is all about just what I was talking about, really, of, a lot of times when we talk legacy, we think of something that we're going to leave behind that others will remember us by, right? And so everybody else gets the benefit from your legacy, but not necessarily you. We've all been in that mode of growing and building and driving, and all for what? Maybe to leave a legacy. And in that process of continuing to just push and grind and build, a lot of times we can forget to enjoy it along the way. And again, because of the fact that if you can remember and keep it present that, hey, my time could be up today when I hop in the car and go home, and am I going to be happy with the results of my life up until this point, if that's the case? And, again, be honest with yourself. If it's not, then what are you going to do to change that? How can you shift some things in your life to enjoy it a little bit along the way? So that's, living a legacy is living the life that you want, having clarity and purpose, and being intentional in your life, but also not just to accomplish things, but to enjoy it along the way too. Again, all the things that we've been talking about, surrounding yourself with other people, making a difference. We all want to make a difference. We all want to leave our mark on people and help people lift others up. And so that's all part of it, is just enjoying it along the way, being present with the people that matter most to you right here, right now, versus the people on social media that really don't give a crap one way or the other about you and your life as much as we would like to think they do. So living legacy is just a thought process of, yes, I want to build and leave something that makes a difference and that people remember, but I also want to enjoy it along the way.
Right. That makes perfect sense. So tell me this, being a coach and being in the Army, what percentage of people do you think have the ability to leave, what they're doing, they're steady, everything is just normal life, to push beyond that and achieve the goals that they really want?
What percent? I mean, 100% of us have
the ability.
It would have the ability. I mean, you could just there's countless stories out there. I'm listening to this book right now. It's called No Finish Line. It's about this gal that, and I apologize, I don't remember her name, but she was legally blind, and she was an Olympic runner in the 1500. And, no finish line, because she literally couldn't see the finish line. Like, she tells a story about how she finished the race, and she was asking one of the runners that must have came in right behind her, like, who won? And she's like, you did. So in a way, it's kind of a blessing that you can't see, because if she'd see the finish line, then she'd know how much further she has to go. And when we know how much further we have to go, when we start thinking out in the future, sometimes that beats us down. We're like, screw it, I quit. That's just too much. It's too far. It's going to take too long. So again, she's just able to stay in the present. She just keeps running until basically they tell her to stop. And so, too many of us place those limitations on ourselves.
Yeah. And I see so many people, and I think this is a good point, that, when you say people stay in their circle of people and it's the average of the people they're around, you don't see what happens outside of that sometimes. And I've seen so many people through social media and through other connections, through books that, like you're talking about, of people who have way, way worse circumstances than a lot of us do. And they create massive success for themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you see that, you're like, well, it doesn't matter. This person, like we had Tim Davis from, Movement Mortgage. He grew up, in the projects, like, that was his life, but that's not his legacy. It's just his beginning, like you said. So it's so neat to be able to get out of your sphere and see all these people, where they come from. All these people that are successful weren't born into a family that's successful and they were just given the silver spoon, right. As people say, a lot of people come from tough times.
Yeah, absolutely. You do see a lot of people that come from humble or tough times, and a lot of that drives them to want more for their kids, or to change that, maybe even to go and to help others that are in that same situation, and it drives them, whatever
it's
it
almost
is.
An advantage. It almost seems like their upbringing is almost an advantage to them, because if you are raised in a family where you got everything you really need, happiness, money, but you're not successful, maybe it's easy just to stay in that and continue your life that way. But
I mean, the statistics, I don't remember what they are, but they're definitely, for those that grew up, I guess, lack of a better term, with that silver spoon, they tend not 100% of the time, but they tend not to work as hard, or maybe to have as big or lofty goals, because they haven't had to, which, in a way is understandable. you'll hear, like, I listen to Joe Rogan a fair amount, and he's mentioned this a few times about how he's kind of worried for his kids because Joe didn't have that, and it made him work hard. That's made him into who he is. And now, of course, his kids, because of him, have plenty of money and don't have a lot to worry about, which he's happy that that's the case. But at the same time,
Right.
how do you instill some of those values and ethics that he had growing up because he didn't have that stuff into his children's lives? So if but at the same time, for a lot of people, again, going back to mindset, they grow up in those in the situation like Tim Davis, they don't ever get out because maybe they were told that they never would, and they believed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
but I think that, and that ties into, as you're speaking about the silver spoon or the struggle and all of that, that also ties into failure. A lot of times this goes back to the parenting part of our conversation, right? So as parents, a lot of times that bubble wrap, right? We try to put our kids in this bubble wrap of not having to experience difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know that a lot of times, whether it's, when you're younger or as an adult, you have to go through those failures to learn and to grow and to take pieces of it as you move along. So what do you recommend, and how do you feel about learning from those struggles and growth?
Yeah, that's critical. It really is. I could go back to when I was trying to run 100 miles. I did 3 different 100-mile races, and the first 2 I didn't make it 100 miles, so I failed. And but I was able to learn a ton. Right? If it wasn't for those experiences, I don't think that I would have been successful on the 3rd attempt, because
that kind of goes back to that mouse thing. The hope.
Yeah.
you
made it 75 or 80 miles,
Yeah.
so that gave you hope that you could make it 100 the next time.
Exactly. Yeah, and you just learn a lot, right? You learn a lot in the failures. It's like there's this knowledge on nutrition, on the gear that you need, on how to run the race that you just don't know until you go out and you do it. Like, you can talk to as many people as you want, and certain things work a little bit differently and better for others than they're going to for you. So until you put yourself in that place, like Man in the Arena is a big, by Teddy Roosevelt back in 1912. There's a speech he gave that's called the Man.
I know that speech.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's pretty important. I try to live my life kind of that way, right? And until I put myself in that arena, until I showed up, signed up for the races, traveled, showed up, put in all the work, and then started on the start line, and then got as far as I did, I just wouldn't have known until I did that. So those failures are critical to help you to succeed. And we all know that. We hear, athletes and businessmen, even like Elon Musk, right?
Oh yeah.
People like that will talk all the time about the incredible failures that they had that really were the driving force behind them having the success stories that they do today.
Man, that reminds me of him, because I saw a video the other day of an interview he did about SpaceX in the beginning, where the NASA guys that landed on the moon were talking bad about him.
That's right. Yeah, I remember
it was
that.
Like, he was in tears. Those were his idols. And, he was in tears, trying to choke it back, trying to talk about how it hurt that they were, saying he would be a failure, and, it was silly. And now, he's leading NASA he's helping them get to, to other dimensions. So it's just crazy. Like you said.
But what if he listened to them? What if he said, "Oh, that's it. It's too hard. I'm going to give up." Right? What if he did? Look at it. And
it's the same thing with Tesla. Everybody said, he lost money, he's losing money, and it's never going to work. And now it's like, well, hello.
Hello.
It's a good thing he didn't listen to 99% of the world saying that he had, like you said, crazy goals. He had a clear, crazy vision, and everyone thought that it was crazy.
Crazy vision. Yeah. And I bet there's way more that do listen, and that we never hear about, because they did. They listened, they quit. They faced a little bit of resistance or adversity, and they didn't know how to deal with it or handle it. Again, it doesn't make them bad. Doesn't mean that they won't ever be able to push through that at some point. But but yeah, that's hopefully, that's why there's like this podcast. Maybe someone's listening and in that place, and hopefully, that helps them to push through and keep going.
Absolutely, man. Well, I tell you what, I want to let the audience know you will be a part of our big event on May 4th.
Yeah.
So
Can't wait.
The Leadership Mastermind Podcast, goes live with the Leadership Mastermind event. So I'm pretty excited to have you part of that.
Yeah, I am too. I can't wait. More flicks.
Yay!
That's awesome.
That's the big reveal.
Yes, it's going to be amazing, and it's so great that you're part of the first live event, Nate. We can't wait to listen in and learn and hear more. And at this time, how can people learn more at this moment?
Yeah, well, they can pretty easy. Just go to my website, natebailey.org, and you can find out more about me and my podcast and books and everything that I'm up to. Connect with me on social right there on my website.
And if you're brave enough, how can they get a hold of you to attend one of these events to be pushed to their physical brink?
Yeah, well, it's the same way. You could email me, you could message me on Facebook or Instagram would be the two places where I'm easily accessible. Nate at coachnatebailey.com. Just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to get you in the right direction and have you come out.
Awesome. Well, Nate, I appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again on May 4th.
Absolutely. Thank you.